However, with the new provisions introduced in the 1954 Constitution, Zik won the election in a landslide to become the premier of Eastern Nigeria. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe can easily be described as the father of Nigeria's and Africa's liberation.
I had been a strong admirer of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. I wasn't old enough when he was practicing his journalism in the late 30s. I wasn't even born, but I followed his career, his journalism career, and his political career, and I admire him a lot.
I think that you have to give the gentleman credit for what he did at the time he did it. First of all, when he was in the Gold Coast, where he started his journalism career as the editor of the African Morning Post, he was able to use that platform to advocate African nationalism to such a degree that that particular territory became the first country to regain its political independence from Britain. He eventually took his craft to his home country, Nigeria, and started the West African Pirate. He increasingly advocated Nigerian nationalism, African nationalism. He built, alongside that newspaper, a lot of other newspapers in different parts of the country. He also built some other businesses because he was basically emphasizing the need for self-reliance to the extent that he was able to succeed. Nigeria in 1960 became politically independent. And there are so many other countries that eventually became independent, to the extent that the last country to be independent was what used to be the Republic of South Africa, which was apartheid South Africa, which became independent under the leadership of the great Madiba, Nelson Mandela, back in 1994, and the end of apartheid. So to some degree, I think he succeeded.
As to what Zik was, at the time he was alive, he remained the tallest. Not in height, in influence, knowledge, and understanding of governance, and in politics in Nigeria. He remained that until he died.
The love of our country should outweigh the love of our petty selves. The enjoyment of individual freedom under the law should mean more to us than our self-centered party programs and manifestos. Common dangers and common enemies alert us on the need for common security. The British came here in
After many years of tireless advocacy, Nigeria gained independence on October 1, 1960.
October 1960, a new nation is born, Nigeria, the pride of Africa.
Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the first president of the Senate, was named the country's first and only Governor General, succeeding Sir James Robertson.
I, Nnamdi Azikiwe, do swear that I will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, in the office of Governor General of the Federation of Nigeria. So help me God.
He later became the first president when Nigeria became a republic in 1963. Zik's acceptance to represent the Queen of England as the Governor General after Nigeria's independence was viewed by some as an act of hypocrisy.
So he was happy to be a Governor General if that will help liberate Nigeria. He was happy to contribute and talk and so on. So in a way, Zik was a progressive in terms of let all Africans benefit from the wealth of Africa. So that's why he was a progressive. But in terms of his politics, he was more liberal and more conservative. Conservative to start with when he became the Governor General. And I say conservative because then when he became the Governor General, it meant that he could no more comment on politics. He put himself above politics. Because if you are the Queen's representative, you can't then get involved in the day-to-day politics of the country. You are now above it. And so in that sense, he was a conservative. And then considering that the crown at the time, as we all now know or knew at the time, was interested in the resources of Nigeria, it meant that he did nothing as a Governor General with respect to the control of Nigeria's resources by the British state. But then, as you know, in 1963, after Nigeria became a republic, therefore it then threw out the Queen at the time. Then Zik was freer as a Nigerian to now speak as a citizen of Nigeria and not a representative of an imperialist monarch. So in that sense, he became more liberal. But as I said, he didn't quite become an Nkrumah in the sense that he wanted a socialist state. Because Nkrumah and the others stood for a socialist Africa, in the sense that they wanted Africa to become a country in which the resources of Africa were now owned, controlled, managed by the people themselves. And all elitism was to be set aside, and the people's welfare was supreme. Everything must be done for the people.
And it was thought that when this independence would have been won, he was to be the executive president of Nigeria or prime minister of Nigeria. But it didn't work out. That was because the colonial masters that gave us independence hated Zik for carrying out this independence, the campaign for freedom and independence of Nigeria. They never liked Zik for that. And when eventually they were compelled to grant independence of Nigeria, they made sure that Zik would not be given executive powers. He would have said, unless I become the prime minister or president, there will be no independence in Nigeria. He would have said so, and that would have been the case. But he never did so. Zik wanted Nigeria to be free at all costs, even at his own cost. He did say, if you can be a tree, be a grass, but be the best grass. And he therefore accepted to play a subservient role instead of presidential role in Nigeria, or prime minister role of Nigeria. Look at Zik. Look at the difference between Zik and those that took over power. And the person that took over from him, Zik, with many degrees, BSc, MSc, PhD, and even the one he hasn't got, they gave him. That's the joke at that time.
He was a man who sometimes was pragmatic. He was pragmatic, but that he was also an optimist. He was the type of person who saw very far. He was very visionary. He was not the type of person who saw very near. I think that he may have been a ceremonial president. He may have been, for example, someone that was more symbolic than substance when it came to those types of positions. But I would not be surprised that he definitely had a way that he made some significant contributions in the newly independent Nigeria, which later, of course, became a republic. I mean, he became a republic and he became the president. So I don't think that he should really apologize for what he ended up becoming. I do not think that it was an act of being a hypocrite. It was the reality, the political reality that was presented to him at the time.
It makes no difference to me really whether I win this election or not. I want you to believe me, and I'm not talking politics. For 25 years of my life, I fought for the freedom of Nigeria. Nigeria will attain independence on October 1, 1960. So it makes no difference to me whether the Sardauna or Balewa or Chief Awolowo or myself will become the first prime minister. So long as Nigeria is free, I'll be satisfied.
As president, Azikiwe sought to unite Nigeria's diverse ethnic groups and lay the foundation for a prosperous and stable nation. He proposed and stood by his vision of one Nigeria.
I am unhappy that a man like that didn't get to the presidency of Nigeria with all the powers that the Nigerian president has, because he was a man who loved Nigeria. He was a man who knew Nigeria. He was a man that could have done a lot for Nigeria. Considering his background, well educated, he went to Howard University. He went to Lincoln University in the United States. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. He had a degree in multiple disciplines, a degree in political science, master's degree in religion, a master's degree in anthropology. Such a well-educated man could have done a lot for Nigeria, but he did not get to the kind of position that he would have been able to use in influencing the direction of Nigeria.
Though his tenure was marked by political challenges, including the turbulence leading to the Nigerian Civil War, Zik's vision for a united Nigeria remained robust.
In fact, it was Akpara who erected the buildings of the University of Nigeria. The buildings, most of the buildings you have in the old campus. Because Zik established the university, he did what he could, put up a small, then Akpara now came and consolidated it. And to show you how nationalistic Zik was, after building that university, he named the refectory after Margaret Ekpo, the famous Margaret Ekpo refectory. The biggest hostel in the university was named after Eyeta, Professor Eyeta Hall.
Zik's leadership of his Igbo people spanned decades, starting from when he led the Igbo State Union, which saw astronomical rise in education, political, and cultural consciousness among the Igbo people.
People don't appreciate these things because nobody tells them, because the opponent, the traducer, the Igbo traducer, wants him to believe that Zik is an enemy. No. A man who is interested in the essentialization of his people's politics of liberation cannot be an enemy.
Turn in at the hole!
Though Zik was accused of betraying Biafrans by some people who did not know any better, his poem became the Biafran national anthem.
To elaborate on one particular point raised by Colonel Ojukwu, it is highly commendable that he had ordered a truce for 8 days. I feel that General Gowon should be prevailed upon to extend the 2 days of truce which he had ordered to enable the truce to be more permanent and make it possible for peaceful negotiations to prevail.
Biafra won some diplomatic goals and recognition by 5 countries under the guidance of Zik. But Colonel Odimegwu Ojukwu's advisors like Christopher C. Mojeku struck. They accused Zik of trying to curry publicity for himself, insisting that Biafra could hold her ground by military might.
Our people have for a long time been prepared for this eventuality, and I am confident of their readiness. I think that when it does come, that the people on the other side would be surprised as to what they're going to get.
I wish he would have second thoughts and inscribe his name in contemporary world history as a brave soldier and a beloved leader, instead of disfiguring the pages of Nigerian history as another political impostor and petty tyrant.
As the Biafran peace envoy, Zik used his goodwill with African heads to secure some wins for Biafra on the negotiating table. But Ojukwu, believing it could be won on the battlefield, scuttled most of Zik's efforts.
Nkrumah wanted an African nation. He wanted all African nations to form one bloc that can stand the rigors of the West, that can stand the challenge of the West. And you are telling Zik to split Nigeria? No. Because the people who are talking about Pan-Africanist concepts and so on are people who believe in solidifying the continent, building a strong nation state that can stand on its own, that can have establish an army, an armed force that can stand the United States and stand the Western world, that can have an independent economy. Today, what is the economy? You see a city in America which has whose economy is stronger than the economy of a nation state in Africa. What is the per capita income of the average man in Gabon or in Seychelles or in Congo Republic? He wanted a strong country. So in Nigeria, he thought it was going to be in the interest of Nigerians that we have a strong, united Nigeria. The fact that we have not attained that is not aspiration is different from the reality that eventually emerged. So many things can crop up. If there are intrusions, if you have a process and there are intrusions that are destructive, it can destroy whatever you are planning. But that doesn't mean that the idea behind it is wrong.
If you decide that you will not be part of the country and there's a war going on, you are rebelling. Do you understand? You see, the problem we have is that we are too attached to our regionalities that we don't see the big picture. Zik never ever abandoned. It was Zik. It's because of Zik that most of us who lived through the wars survived, actually. Zik was the only Nigerian, both in the Nigerian side and the Biafran side, that was going from, could go freely from Biafra to Nigeria, freely from Nigeria to Biafra. And outside the country was living, nobody was stopping him. It was Zik that got all the recognition from, all the recognition Biafra had was gotten by Nnamdi Azikiwe, all. From Ivory Coast, Gabon. But it was Zik. It was diplomacy.
When Zik saw that the leadership of Biafra was not ready to reason and let wisdom reign, he took a detour that eventually led to self-exile in London. This made many of his people describe him once again as a betrayer who abandoned them during the Civil War.
Since our last meeting, everything possible has been done by the enemies of the East to escalate the crisis in an attempt to bring about the collapse of this region. They have failed and will continue to fail.
The war went to a certain level when Zik, using a mature mind and reasoning, he saw that it wasn't possible that Biafra would win, and advised not to continue because hunger was too much. We were cut off from supplies. Awolowo advocated that if not with bullet, let's kill Eastern region or Biafra with starvation. That starvation is a legitimate instrument of war. And therefore, there was total blockade. Then Ojukwu was advised otherwise. When Zik said, let's go and agree to come together and work in a loose form, loose federation, Ojukwu was advised otherwise by his advisors, and hence he fell out with Zik. But Zik was very much concerned that if this war is allowed like that, Igbos will be totally exterminated.
The world has been shocked that an enterprising people like the Igbo have been tongue-tied and emasculated, that they have allowed tyrants to blindfold and hoodwink them, so that in a war alleged to be fought for their survival, more than 1.5 million children of their country had died of starvation and disease. It sickens me to see the advertisement of skeletal Biafran babies on the pages of newspapers and on the TV screens, begging for charity and relief. It hurts my pride as a human being.
So Zik did what he did to prevent further killings of the Igbos. But remember that our enemies have said, shoot anything in sight. People like Adekunle said, shoot anything in sight. As if the ones they had killed were not enough. So that is Zik and the war. And when he saw that he could not control what was going on in Biafra, he went to France, and from there to England, to continue the shuttle diplomacy, so that Igbos will not suffer the kind of thing that the Germans, the Jews, suffered in Germany. That was his position.
You see, the truth about the war, we really need to look at it, especially put it in writing and do it, use it as a history lesson, a curriculum for our kids here in Igbo land, so we will truly understand what happened. Do you understand? Because when you have a leader who does not listen only to himself, they know there's a problem. Zik was an advisor to Ojukwu during the war, and you know that. That was how we started. And his advice was based on a knowledge Ojukwu himself knew. Ojukwu knew that nothing in this war would have made him win that war. We didn't have any armory. There was no arms in Biafra. I could have been 7 years old, but I saw the militia, they had sticks. It was sticks we were using in trying to fight. We even brought everybody people with knives to go and fight in Nsukka territory. They were all mowed down with one mortar. It was obvious we couldn't win the war. If there are two people fighting, one is very big, one is very small, it's understandable that the small one will rush and get some scratches on the big guy, expecting people to come and separate the fight. That was what we did. That was what Ojukwu did. That was right. At the time Ojukwu declared the war, he had no option. He had to declare that war. But when he declared the war, you have seen this thing. Britain is not for you. US is not for you. Russia is not for you. How are you going to survive? Tell me how you're going to survive. Who is going to give you the ammunition? How are you going to survive? And you don't have the money. You have been cut off 3 months into the war. The entire Biafra you have been hearing ended in Imo State. They are taking the whole of Anambra, Onitsha, all those areas. Enugu, our capital, fell in 2 days. Everywhere, Port Harcourt gone, everything gone. So why continue the fight? So what Zik did was to negotiate a peaceful resolution that will give us our sovereignty, at the same time stop the war. That was what he was planning. But Ojukwu had a promulgatory decree. I think it was decree number 3 or something like that. Once you disagree with him, you are shot. Once you disagree with him, you are shot. The Supreme Commander. That time he had converted himself to Supreme Commander. So whatever he's saying, he said, no, Your Excellency, I don't think you'll be shot. There's no waste of time about that. So when Zik planned the famous the famous peace talk in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, Zik and what's the name of that Calabar man that was Minister for Foreign Affairs? Very smart guy, Okoye Arikpo. Yeah, you think he was a very smart guy. They had drafted, which Zik had told the foreign leaders like Ufo Biongni, Emperor Selassie, Nyerere of Tanzania, that told Zik the nature of address Ojukwu should give in Ethiopia. And the world will come together immediately and say, stop this war. Give these Biafrans what they want. They applied it. They had written the text was, the draft that was already there, and they were all in Addis Ababa. Overnight, Ojukwu changed this. When he came out to speak, he was saying something else. That was where he boasted that no power in Black Africa in the world can defeat Biafra. That was the famous where he said, no power in the world can defeat Biafra. Well, the people who want to help you, and you tell them the power can't defeat. It was from there Zik ran away. Because he already knew that if he goes back to Nigeria, to Biafra, and tell Ojukwu, what did you do? After the one he told him that he's already marked. There was already rumor. You know, the way things graduate, Ojukwu was a bourgeoisie military man. He was among the elite. His father was very rich, so he was living a good life. The revolutionaries that carried out the coup of January 15, 1966, the hotheads were Ifa Ajuna and Kaduna Zogu. It wasn't an Igbo coup. There were so many other people in that weren't Igbos at all. But these were the two hotheads. They were not fighting they did not do their coup to secede Nigeria. They did their coup to stop the profligacy and what they termed corruption that was going on in our first republic. Now, after they did their coup, Danjuma and his colleagues did a counter coup, killed Hiroshi, and Gowon took over. And because Zik wasn't killed in that first coup, but Sardauna was killed, they now called it an Igbo coup, and the installation started, and they started the pogrom against Igbo civilians. So it was that spirit, that was the spirit they were in with the pogrom. Then the war, Ojukwu declared secession, which he had no choice, he had to do that. He declared Biafra. Ifeajuna and Nzogbu, very brave, smart soldiers, they weren't for war or secession. Do you understand? But they said, okay, they fought. But when they started telling Ojukwu, oh boy, we're not going to feel with this thing. Oh. See, Nigerian armory there for Kaduna. We're not having arms. How do you think we can win this thing? Let's find a way to make peace. Ojukwu saw it as a threat and had them shot. So the narrative, because if Kaduna Zogu was from Akpanam and Ifeajuna was from Onitsha, that time there wasn't this demarcation about Ikaibo and we were all seen as Onitsha people. And the Biafrans said that Onitsha people were saboteurs. So that was the background under which Zik was operating as an Onitsha man when Ojukwu refused to take his advice in Addis Ababa. That was in, I think, August 5, 1968. August 5, 1968. Ojukwu refused to take his advice. And what it meant was that he was going against Supreme Leader. If Zik had come back, Ojukwu would have killed him as his Zik. From there, he resigned as his ambassador plenipotentiary and left for France. So anybody that tells you the history that Zik abandoned Igbo is a lie, doesn't know the history. You should take a look and see Ojukwu. Even before the war ended. You know, war brings a lot of things. It brings out the worst in human beings, especially soldiers. When they had entered everywhere, I saw the war. I was about 7 or 8 years old. But mark you, the people who have a record of the war, of any war, are women and children. It plays to them like a 3D video. So I knew that the Biafrans were all over, the Nigerian army was all over the place. They were taking our women, they were raping our women by force. They were ready to scavenge the entire Igbo land. It was the same Zik Igbos are blaming today that told Gowon, this war will not end as winner takes all. To not end, if you kill all of them, whom will you rule over? And you know, Gowon by nature is a decent human being. He's a very decent human being by nature. So he saw the point. This same Zik, Gowon is alive.
Dr. Azikiwe's pursuit of Africa's liberation did not stop at having independence. He sued for its unity and was also instrumental in the formation of the Organization of African Unity, now African Union. Zik's ideas of Africa's unity could be concretized either as regional states or one continental state. This idea would inspire the welding together of political entities with differences of languages and cultures while retaining the sovereignty of the states, such as it is in the United States of America. He proposed economic cooperation and custom union that would break down the walls of tariffs and barriers, establishing common market, common currency, Trans-African Railway System, Pan-African Airways, Telecommunications Authority, and collective security in the mold of the Monroe Doctrine, amongst others. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was also a consummate cultural leader. In 1946, he was inducted into the Agbalanze Ozo Society at Ogbabo with the title Ogbuefi Nnanyeluzo. In 1963, as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Obi Joseph Okudele Onyejekwe, then Obi of Onitsha, appointed him Ndi Ichie Chief Designate with the tentative title of Oziziane Obi of Onitsha. He was a member of Ndokwaka age grade and was conferred with the Onitsha title, the Owele Osowanya, which made him a member of Ndi Ichie Ume, the Red Cap Chiefs in second hierarchy after the Obi of Onitsha. Zik was described as somewhat aggressive, as an intelligent man, accomplished entrepreneur, scholar, and author of many books. He was proud. He did not like indulgence and was impatient with lazy and ignorant people.
He published several books. One of them was Liberia in World Politics, Renaissance Africa, where he espoused his ideas and so on. And these ideas influenced a lot of African leaders.
He was also a man of the people. He smiled wide and real, was family-oriented and communalistic.
Well, once you come to his house, there's a drink. He will give you special drink. He will ask you to take. He makes sure everybody takes that drink. You know, it's, I think he says either brandy. Jim will tell you about that. So he's very jovial, very accommodating. You know, when he will make you feel at home when you're with him.
I met Zik personally, went to his house, and he surprised me. He treated me as if I were a big man. And I was trying to honor him, but he rejected everything.
Time and again, Zik proved he was a man of great courage and principle. He would rather be guided by sound reasoning or wisdom than sentiments or emotions. The bedrock of his philosophies was a strong belief in restoring the dignity of man. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe married Flora Ogbenyano Ogeibunam, a native of Onitsha, in 1936. Together, they were blessed with 4 children. Many years later, he married Uchewa, and they were blessed with 2 children and many grandchildren. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe tried unsuccessfully to become Nigeria's president in 1979 and in 1983.
We reject in its entirety and without any reservation whatsoever the declaration of the Alhaji Shehu Shagari as president-elect. We have decided to challenge the Pedico decision in the law courts. Notwithstanding the court action, and to save this nation further anxiety and uncertainty, we call upon the Supreme Military Council as the highest legislative and executive authority to annul the declaration of Pedico of Alhaji Shehu Shagari as president-elect and ensure that the Electoral College is convened forthwith to conclude properly the presidential election as provided by law. Thank you.
You cannot give any credit to the NPN for getting figures out of rigging. You can do nothing about rigging. They rigged, super rigging.
Thereafter, he decided to step down from active politics to allow the younger generation of politicians to carry on. According to him, "As for me, my stiffest earthly assignment is ended, and my major life's work is done. My country is now free, and I have been honored to be the first indigenous head of state. What more could one desire in life? I thank God for sparing my life to witness the independence of my native land. I am grateful to God for the opportunity to serve." Once he was asked what he would like to be remembered for, Zik said, "I would like to be remembered as a member of a team who played a part just like the other members of the team, so that the team won. And if the team had lost, the team would lose peacefully. But having won, we did nobly. We won with nobility." On his sickbed, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe refused to be taken abroad. He said, "If the end has come, it should be while I'm at home." He passed away on May 11, 1996, leaving behind a legacy of patriotism, resilience, and a lifelong commitment to the cause of African liberation.
Zik was a great man, a great Nigerian, a great nationalist, a man you would say came before his time, a man who showed the light to make his people see, a man who was a pan-Africanist, a pan-black nationalist, whom you cannot circumscribe within the Igbo ethnic group or the Nigerian Jew polity.
Zik stood out. He was one of the great giants of Africa. In Shakespeare, he says, "His death bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs." He was a colossus of Pan-Africanism, inspired a whole generation of young people to go out and study and so on. People like Nkrumah followed in his footsteps. They also went, they studied. When Nkrumah when Nkrumah came to government, he also sent people outside Ghana to go and study and come back. And that's what Zik did. Once again, I think Zik's contribution to the struggle for Black emancipation and African nationalism is unparalleled. I mean, he was just amazing. And finally, as we saw, Zik contributed to the independence of Ghana by the way he came to Ghana, became part of our newspaper industry. He became part of the struggle for the liberation of Ghana and therefore of Africa. And whilst he was doing this in Ghana, the Nigerians, my brothers and sisters in Nigeria was also watching what he was saying and doing. That was inspiring them as well. He was also writing whilst he was in America. He was an editor and writing for papers. Again, that filtered back to Ghana, filtered back to Nigeria, and we took note of it and so on. So I think that Zik should be celebrated by all of us.
He is that kind of person that should be regarded in terms of his contributions as an African treasure, as somebody whose contributions will never die. They will live for the ages. That is the kind of person I see when I talk about Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe.
Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe has been immortalized. Many important places have been named after him. Roads, buildings, libraries, and schools across Nigeria, Africa, and even the United States of America. His portrait adorns Nigeria's 500 naira currency note. He was awarded many honorary degrees and Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, Nigeria's highest national honor, while many lectures and symposia are held in his honor, including the Michigan State University International African Student Fellowship for Research. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe's life was a beacon of hope for millions of Nigerians and Africans. His dream of a free and united Africa continues to inspire generations. As we reflect on his life and times, we are reminded that the struggle for freedom, justice, and unity of Africans is a journey that must be carried forward by each generation.
I am happy that history has assigned to me an important part to play in order that this unity may have lasting effects and bring home to our people the need to maintain it religiously. If I am asked whether I'm happy because Nigeria is free and the Nigerian government appears to be stable and the people of Nigeria are apparently satisfied that the price of freedom and the price our leaders paid for it were worth the sacrifice, I would answer in the affirmative.
Character of Zik that nobody ever tries to portray. Zik is the most detribalized human being I've seen. A ruler, is the best of his friends. He has friends amongst the Igbos, where he comes from, best friends from the Yorubas, best friend from the Hausas and Hausa Fulanis. He's a friend of all, detribalized. You must have heard of his friends, like Aden Rogusanya. I remember when we were receiving the body of Zik. Lagos was the federal capital, and the parliament was there. When the body came to the parliament in Lagos, I remember seeing his friend, Aden Rogusanya, in a wheelchair, weeping, tears coming from Aden Rogusanya, one of the best friends he had. Another very good friend he had among the Yorubas, T.O.S. Benson.
A man of unity, man of principle, man of culture, man of peace, man of understanding, anything you can think of. May God bless his spirit and his soul.
ZIK of Africa. May God bless him wherever he is, and I believe he's in the heart of the Lord.
As Langston Hughes wrote, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly."